Good morning, everyone. I will call 9 o'clock. We have 3 different times here, so welcome to the Senate Education. Let's stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Senator Whitley, who is standing in instead of Senator Prentice, would you please do it?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, our first bill this morning is House Bill 155. Is Mr. Representative Moffett going to be here?
I believe the prime sponsor should be here. He got the calendar notice.
Madam Chair, if you'd like. Representative Moffitt's in Oregon right now.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Lang, taking Representative Moffitt's place.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd introduce House Bill 155 for Representative Moffett, who happens to be out of state. And if I remember right, this just changes the makeup of the commission.
Thank you very much. Anybody wants to speak to that bill? Mr. Appleby, do you want to make any comments?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Steve Appleby, New Hampshire Department of Education. This bill really just cleans up some of the membership of the Higher Education Commission. The first 3 changes are lines 9, 10, 11. We added or designee. This helps in situations like right now where the University of New Hampshire, their president is also the chancellor. And so it instantly creates an empty seat on the commission, potentially, which of course causes quorum issues. So we've added designee to those 3 positions. A little further down, we've struck lines 15 and 16. That was a seat for a for-profit college member. We currently do not have judges in the state of New Hampshire. And one of those, if a for-profit college were open, they could be one of the 6 above in line 12. So
Okay.
again, it doesn't prohibit them, it just eliminates that category, so we're not singling out or distinguishing. So, and then the last item is really housekeeping nature, page 2, line 7. In my 20-plus year history with the Higher Education Commission, the commission has never applied for a grant,
Okay.
and we're not sure they can. So the department would apply for the grant on behalf of the commission.
Any questions from any other committee members? Senator Whitley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you just tell me what changes the House made? If any?
I believe that's page 2, line 7. I think they struck that. I think that was the big. But maybe not. I don't know.
It looks like that was in the original bill, so I'm having trouble finding the difference.
I apologize. I only grabbed the amendment.
Can't see the difference.
I'm trying to find the difference.
We do have a version as amended by the House, but I don't see the difference
That's the original.
from the original bill.
I had the amended by the House. That's okay. That's okay. Thank you, though.
Actually, it's another way, the problem is unless we're looking at the original language, the version we have that's in, at least in our book, has amended by the House and sent to it. So the amendment and the bill are exactly identical.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't look like it was amended then.
Any further questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience who likes to speak to House Bill 155? Seeing none, that closes the hearing on House Bill 155.
Yeah, I
And
have that.
we'll have to take
Yeah, I
a
have
10-minute recess for the
Didn't
next
see the
bill.
difference.
It's weird they would say as amended by the House if there weren't any changes.
Just hold on to it.
You know what I mean?
Well, no, so again, there's two. I think if you look at, when I look at the as introduced bill, it's different than the,
Actually, we have it for 9:30, the next bill.
it's different than
Yeah, 9:30 and not 9:15.
the as introduced bill has a page 3 that talks about equal to at least 10% of the annual gross tuition for a current academic year.
So they took all that out?
And they took all that out. It's like they struck that language. I don't see that same language in the,
You expected a lot of,
Hindsight 2020.
It is warm in here. Oof.
so it looks like they took out all of the surety indemnification language. Starting on page 3 of the bill as it's introduced, at page 2 at the bottom, they struck all of that language.
Yeah.
From the in their amendment.
Yep.
Five 24, amendment on those two. 522, you and I have competing amendments, and the other, 523, I'll ask Frank whether we got that amendment. I don't think we have it. 523, the public library bill. No, so we're still waiting on the amendment. The little one we have is 596.
So Ryan Clark and Senator Sharp told me that they're still working on language for 596 as well, so I guess 522.
522 is going to be discussions for today.
I have to make an adjustment. Instead of 9:15, I see on the schedule here, the next bill will be presented at 9:30. So you have 23 minutes recess, so enjoy. Everybody, we are back from recess and we are now ready for the 9:30 House Bill, which is 637. The prime sponsor is Representative Hobson. Is Representative Hobson here?
Here, let me.
Seeing
she's
none.
out.
Senator Lang will introduce the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. I'll introduce House Bill 637, which makes adjustments to the definitions of average daily membership and attendance, as well as average daily membership in residence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have Caitlin Davis would like to speak to this bill.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Caitlin Davis from the Department of Education. I'm just here to explain the kind of the technical aspects of this bill. So currently, in the existing adequacy formula that's paid to public schools, a proportion of the ADM is made up of a number of kids that are homeschool kids from the resident town that are taking courses at their resident district school. So for each course that they take, it is 0.15 of the base adequacy amount per student. That's in the existing law. The kind of the things that this bill that changes about the existing law is, so the existing law is only for high school students, and it's only if there's appropriation available. And so the things that this law changes is it expands it to grade 7, and it makes it regardless of appropriation is available. So the Department of Education would be able to draw a warrant for these additional funds. It's a relatively small amount compared to the overall adequacy formula. So across the state last year, there were a total of, I don't have the total number of kids, but they made up for a total of 37 ADM statewide, which would have resulted in $150,000 additional being paid to schools. So this does not cover students that are EFA students. It does not include charter schools. It just includes kids who are a resident of their school district, that are a resident of a town, that are accessing academic courses at their school, which they are already entitled to do under the current law. So it's just paying the schools for the courses that they're providing to these kids already.
Questions? Everybody knows everything.
Questions here. Right.
You did such a wonderful job explaining it. I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else who likes to speak to House Bill 637? Seeing none, that ends the hearing on 637. No. Yep. We have a Senate bill that we're going to take up, and we're going to go into executive session for that. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And it is 5:22.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator, discussion. Yes, Senator Whitley.
I'd like to introduce my amendment 0718S.
Microphone.
Thank you. I would like to move my amendment 0718S and speak to my amendment. May I?
Senator Whitley moves her amendment. You may speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I just want to thank the committee for allowing me to stand in for Senator Prentice, who had some outstanding duties that she needed to take care of. So I do appreciate the ability to discuss this issue in particular. This is an issue that I have been working on my entire career, honestly, professionally, and now in the Senate. So the amendment that you have before you is something that was crafted in consultation with DHHS, DOE, New Futures, Council for Thriving Children. We all went down to Nashville with Senator Lang at the invitation of the Hunt Institute, which is a national organization that supports states in expanding access to early care and education. And in Nashville, we discussed a sort of model for broadening access to pre-K, which I think we all agreed was really necessary because New Hampshire is only one of 6 states that does not have state-funded pre-K. So it's really time for a lot of reasons. So the model that we sort of crafted, I believe, is more reflective of the amendment that's presented here today. And so I'm happy to take any questions, but essentially there were a few key areas that I thought was very important, and my understanding was that there was consensus among the groups. One, that it needed to have a fair amount of joint responsibility between DHHS and DOE, because of course, currently a lot of the early care dollars are split between the two agencies. And so while I was very sensitive to Senator Lang's thoughts and opinions that one agency should be in charge. So you'll see that in the end, the Department of Education does have the ultimate decision-making responsibility, but there's a lot of collaboration built into this amendment through an interagency agreement and through rulemaking. So it is collaborative with the DOE making final determination. And I want to speak to the interagency part of it. I professionally also have worked a lot in the children's mental health system, and that statute that implemented that structure is RSA 135F, and 135F creates joint responsibilities between DOE and DHHS through an interagency agreement. So we use the same structure in the children's mental health system in this model. The other core value that this amendment is reflective of is the importance of having quality early care and education. There's a lot of data and evidence that if early care and education, preschool education is not of a certain quality, then we're not going to see the outcomes that we want. And so this amendment is the reflective of the fact if we are going to use state dollars, it has to be on programs that are actually effective. And so it creates a balance between defining quality, but then also leaving it to the experts about who's going to say what quality really is, in collaboration with the work that is already going on between DHHS and DOE. And so I will stop there. And if folks have any questions on this model or this amendment, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Well, just discussion.
Senator Lang.
So again, Senator Whitley and I went back and forth on this several times, trying to get to an agreement. The other amendment has probably 90% of what's in this amendment over there, just done a little bit differently. In my discussions with, again, DOE and DHHS and New Futures on my amendment, one of the overriding differences is what Senator Whitley and I were just referencing, is that I consider this an education program. So the responsibility resides primarily in education for everything. And that's what my amendment reflects, is that there is some joint collaborative rulemaking, but in the end, DOE has the final say if there's conflict. The problem I have with this interagency agreement is the shall language that's in here that talks about the agency shall develop one, but what happens if they disagree? How do they get to a signature? And does that stop the program from running as a whole? And so in an effort to do that, to have one boss, the amendment I have has one boss being the Department of Education, because again, I view this as an education bill, not a child care bill, and therefore it belongs in the Department of Education. Senator Whitley's has a couple shalls in here that I had problems with. That is why I didn't adopt it into my amendment. She presented it to me and I just could not bring it in because of the shalls. And I was concerned about if the departments get to loggerheads, then the program fails. And I didn't want the program to fail. So I'll be voting against the amendment. having reviewed it before. But I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. The other aspect of it is a good piece, a part of my amendment allows greater flexibility to parents. Is that where Senator Whitley's program talks about, basically full-time, high-quality education or even possibly part-time, but not individual programs. So I wanted to allow the flexibility for a parent who has a child who meets the qualifications of the program to be able to and they want to do a reading program with their child at the kitchen table. That is a qualified program that's been certified by the department and approved by the Department of Education. I wanted to allow those kind of parents that ability without having to send their kid to a program and send their kid to a daycare center or a pre-K service center. So I wanted to allow greater flexibility so low-income families to be able to have access to simple reading programs or math programs, whatever quality program that the Department of Education has allowed for, to allow them to do that within their home as well.
Senator Whitley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, I want to clarify, this is not a child care bill. It's absolutely a bill addressing pre-K. I'm not quite clear why you think this is childcare, but if you do read this, if you look on page 3, line 14, it says that the Commissioner of the Department of Education shall be responsible for final approval of programs eligible for funding under this statute and shall only approve those programs that meet the elements of quality. So DOE is the final decider. This is an important collaboration because a lot of the dollars that would be used to fund early care and education are with DHHS. So the other thing is that there is flexibility built in here. I was very responsive to Senator Lang's concern about forcing folks into a center-based program. This is not what this does. My son did a part-time program. He was very, very young when he started pre-K. He was not ready for a full-time. He went 2 days a week. So this gives flexibility to whatever is beneficial for the child. It gives it allows home-based pre-K. It allows religious pre-K. So there's a lot of flexibility, but really where the flexibility is that we are saying it's not the senators that are deciding what is adequate and what is quality pre-K. It's the experts. It's DOE and DHHS. And I think my amendment is very responsive to the expertise of the folks that are at the table. And I think it's better reflective of the years of work that have gone into this. And I have been at the table for that work, including including the Council for Thriving Children, which is a joint organization where DHHS and DOE are co-chairs. There's also a pre-K, folks may have heard of the Preschool Development Grant. The state has gotten millions of dollars to do this joint work, and this amendment is more reflective of the millions of dollars that have gone into developing the model.
Any further discussion? Are you ready to vote on the amendment? Have a motion?
Well, she already moved the
Yeah.
amendment.
You move the amendment, okay.
Second.
And
How are you voting?
Yes.
Yes, so we have voted on the amendment, but we don't know who is voting yes or voting no.
So all those in favor?
Yes,
I'm a no.
no. I'm a no, so there's 3-2. So the amendment fails. No, so take up,
Madam Chair, I move amendment number 24-0794S.
Second?
you may, any discussion? You may speak to your amendment.
Thank you again. So this amendment was put together in cooperation with the Department of Health and Human Services, who's here through Christine and through the Department of Education, who we work regularly on this bill. I have to tell you, my committee assistant is tired of the number of amendments I've done on this bill to try to get it through and being responsive to as many things as I can. Again, this program allows for an early childhood education program that in addition to doing a mixed delivery program with public and private programs, will also allow parents to be able to selectively pull approved programs from the Department of Education if they meet the financial requirements. Again, thinking of a mom who may want to be able to just do a reading program with their child and be able to go to the Department of Education, establish their early childhood scholarship account and be able to buy, using the state dollars, the approved reading program and sit down at their kitchen table and go through that program. and the parent may not want to send their kid to 2 days to a pre-K center or full-time at a pre-K center, but is able to get the benefit, which I think we all know will ultimately end up benefiting the child long-term by having maybe identified reading programs, math programs, whatever kind of programs the department approves. I will say from serving on JALCAR, you'll see in on this amendment on page 2, there's kind of a list of programs and things that are non-exhaustive. But serving on JALCAR, one of the complaints we got when we implemented program, the EFA program, was that there was no list, and the department was approving. So our goal was, again, instead of leaving it as an open-ended item, is to put some sides around to talk about the kinds of programs we expect the department to approve, being high quality or quality pre-K programs, and make them available to any parent that chooses to implement and do, again, math, science, reading, whatever kind of program that pre-K would offer, would allow those parents who don't want to send their kid to a center to be able to do that. And for the parents that do want to send their kids to a center, the goal here also was to be able to create stackable dollars and to allow the ability for a family with a 4-year-old may be eligible for a child care scholarship program for child care because of the income of the family. But they could also, if that daycare center offers a pre-K program, stack the education dollars on top of the child care dollars to be able to get their child into the pre-K program. So it was designed with as much flexibility as possible for the parent and to give the most resources available for low-income families.
Senator Whitley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to be clear again, this is not a consensus amendment. I think Senator Lang was clear in previous executive sessions that he was the final decider. And I think this amendment is reflective of he's making choices on behalf of the group. So it's not reflective of all the group. I think the group did provide input, but it's not a consensus amendment. I would just want to make that very clear. I personally think this is not very fiscally responsible because you're going to allow general fund dollars to be spent on non-quality programs. I think we should all be very, very concerned with the quality of early care and education that our children are getting, particularly at this early stage, which is such a critical part of brain development. I think there are protections in here for the child care scholarship, and I do appreciate that, but we're still talking about general fund dollars are going to be spent on non-quality programs. And I think I think this amendment is not very fiscally responsible in that. I think it's not reflective of the years of work that the group, that many groups, I think there were many requests that were made to put in the amendment that were not put in, particularly this sort of interagency collaboration. So I am disappointed that the committee is, it looks like the committee is not going to sort of respect the years of work that have been done in this field.
Senator Question?
Just a question for you.
Yeah.
What would be considered a, like a sensical educational program, or something that would not be, in your eyes or your opinion, would not be valuable? What would be an example of that?
So there's a lot of research on quality and on certain quality programs. I'm not an education expert, but I have seen the research of states that have implemented pre-K programs that didn't focus on quality, and states that did. And the states that focused on quality saw the outcomes later in school. We're talking about readiness for school in the immediate future, but we're also talking about future outcomes, right? In terms of less participation in special ed, we're talking about criminal justice involvement. So if we don't focus on quality, we're not going to get those outcomes. So I just think from a fiscal responsibility perspective, we need to use state dollars on quality programs. So this does not have a focus on quality, and this allows us to spend dollars on pretty much anything. And I think what we should spend money on are quality programs. And I think the people that should decide that are the experts, not us.
So can I follow up?
Follow up.
And it's more of a reflection or a comment.
Yeah.
I very simply thinking in my simple mind, I homeschooled my daughter 4th and 5th grade. It was disastrous. It was. I should tell you the same thing. Part of it was finding the right, now it wasn't pre-K, but still. So we were trying to find the right program for her.
Sure.
Somebody could step in and say, well, you did a terrible job. with the program that you found and it wasn't quality, and yet there were many families that experienced great results from some of the programs. So I had to find the program that fit her, very hands-on. So I think it kind of follows the student. So what we may say isn't quality could very well be the best for the child or the student. And I'm only speaking from, my own personal experience.
And I would absolutely agree because I had a similar experience with my son. He had very specific needs because he was so young. And I think I think my amendment in particular provided flexibility to parents. It wasn't a mandatory thing. Parents are free to seek out a program that's more appropriate for their children. What I'm just saying is that I know what the research says, and I think if we're going to spend state dollars, it should be on programs that have evidence behind them.
Thank
Any
you.
further
Yeah,
discussion?
absolutely.
Senator Lang.
So again, I draw your attention to page 3 of the amendment, lines 26 through 30. Again, this is about the rulemaking and the work between Health and Human Services Department of Education, the Commissioner of Department of Education, in collaboration with the Commissioner of Department of Health and Human Services shall, and number 1, develop a detailed, publicly available rubric for approving quality pre-K programs. So the argument that this is not going to be quality programs approved by the Department of Education in cooperation with the Department of Health and Human Services is just not accurate. That the programs are designed by law to be a quality program and that it's a cooperative effort between, but in the end, the Commissioner of Health and Education is the one who decides what the program is, working with DHHS. You'll also notice that if you finish that line, it says, a rubric for approving quality pre-K programs eligible for funding under the subdivision in line with the early learning New Hampshire standards. Again, so going back to the cooperative standards that have been established, these programs will be looked in light of those standards in order for approval. So again, I think that it's specious to say that we're going to assume that the programs are not quality when exactly in the law it says that the programs have to be quality. And that the Commissioner of Education and Department of Health and Human Services must identify quality programs and make them available to parents.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I can respond to
Senator
that.
Whitley.
Yeah, so I wrote that language, and so I'm very familiar with that language. That's the shalls that you were prior talking about, which is why I think on page 2 of Senator Lang's amendment, it's very inconsistent, starting on line 16, going through line 34 to then do this laundry list. So the shall, language in the rulemaking of quality is very inconsistent with then this laundry list of they can use it for all these different things. I think this laundry list is not necessary, particularly when we are giving the authority to the departments to determine quality. I think this statute is very confusing if we're including this laundry list.
Further discussion? Okay, we have amendments 0794S. That's been and seconded. Are you ready to vote on the amendment?
Yes.
Senator Lang,
Yes.
Senator Gendro, Senator Whitley? No. Senator Benton? No. So it's 3-2 the other direction for the amendment. Okay, the underlying bill with the amendment. Ready to vote on it?
I'm sorry?
I said the underlying bill with the amendment.
No.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
No, okay. So the underlying bill with the amendment passes 3-2.
I'll take that out, Madam Chair.
Lang will take it out. That takes care of the executive session.
Move to come out of executive session.
We'll have a second.
Second.
We moved out of executive session and we are done. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me sit in.
Thanks for joining us.